You already know what you're supposed to do. You know your risk management rules. You know you're not supposed to revenge trade. You know you should follow your plan. But you keep breaking those rules anyway, and every time you do, you tell yourself it'll be different next time. It never is. I'm going to tell you something that might be hard to hear. The reason you're not consistent has nothing to do with your strategy. It has nothing to do with market conditions or your broker or the fact that you're trading a small account. The reason you're not consistent is that you're running the same 5 psychological patterns over and over again, and until you see them clearly, nothing changes. Most traders never figure this out. They spend years thinking the problem is external. They keep searching for better setups, tighter rules, more sophisticated indicators. They think if they just find the right method, everything will click into place. But the method isn't the problem. You are. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean it as the only piece of information that can actually help you. Let me walk you through what's really happening when traders fail. Not the stories they tell themselves, not the excuses they make, the actual patterns that destroy accounts and break spirits. Because once you see these patterns in yourself, you can't unsee them. And that's when real change becomes possible. Think about the last time you had a losing trade. Not just any losing trade, but one that triggered you. One that made you feel something intense. Maybe it was anger. Maybe it was frustration. Maybe it was that sick feeling in your stomach that tells you you've done something stupid. Now think about what you did next. Did you step away from the charts? Did you take a breath and review what happened objectively? Or did you immediately start looking for another trade? Most traders do the second thing. They feel the discomfort of the loss, and their immediate instinct is to fix it. To get back in, to make the money back, to prove that the last trade was just a fluke. And this is where everything goes wrong. Because when you're in that emotional state, when you're feeling triggered and reactive, you're not making decisions based on your analysis. You're making decisions based on how you feel. Your brain is flooded with stress hormones. Your rational thinking is compromised. Your perception is distorted. And every choice you make from that place is going to be influenced by your need to relieve the discomfort you're feeling. This is the first pattern, emotional reactivity. And it's not about being weak or undisciplined. It's about being human. Your brain is wired to avoid pain and seek pleasure. When you take a loss, your brain experiences it as a threat. And when your brain perceives a threat, it activates your fight or flight response. Your body is literally preparing you to act, to do something, to respond to the danger. But in trading, that response is lethal. Because the danger isn't a predator you need to run from or fight off. It's just information. It's just feedback. The market moved against you. That's it. But your nervous system doesn't understand the difference between actual physical danger and financial loss. To your body, they feel the same. So you act. You take another trade. You increase your position size. You move your stop loss. You hold a losing position longer than you should because closing it feels like admitting defeat. And all of these actions are driven by your emotional state, not by your trading plan. The traders who succeed aren't the ones who never feel these emotions. They feel them just as intensely as you do, but they've learned to recognize when they're in a reactive state. They've learned to pause. They've learned to wait until the emotional wave passes before making their next decision. Most traders never learn this. They spend their entire careers reacting, trade to trade, loss to loss, constantly trying to fix how they feel by taking action in the market. And the market doesn't care how they feel. The market just keeps moving. And their accounts keep shrinking. Now let me tell you what happens when traders start to realize this. When they start to see that their emotions are driving their decisions, most of them think the solution is to find a better strategy. A strategy so clear, so mechanical that there's no room for emotion. A strategy that tells them exactly what to do in every situation. And this makes sense, right? If the problem is that you're making emotional decisions, then the solution is to remove emotion from the equation. Just follow the rules. Just execute the system. Just be disciplined. So they go searching. They try different approaches. They test new setups. They join new communities. They buy new courses. And for a little while, this feels productive. It feels like progress. They're learning. They're adapting. They're trying to get better. But here's what's actually happening. They're avoiding discomfort. They're switching strategies not because their current strategy doesn't work, but because following it consistently is uncomfortable. Because every strategy has losing periods. Every approach has moments where it doesn't feel good. And when traders hit those moments, when they experience the discomfort of drawdowns or missed opportunities or boring market conditions, they start to doubt. They start thinking, maybe this isn't the right approach. Maybe I should be trading differently. Maybe I'm missing something. And that doubt gives them permission to change, to start over, to try something new. And starting over feels better than sitting with the discomfort of continuing to follow a plan that isn't working right now. This is the second pattern, strategy hopping. And it's insidious because it disguises itself as learning. Traders tell themselves they're being adaptive, they're being flexible, they're staying open-minded. But what they're really doing is running from discomfort. Because here's the truth, no strategy works all the time, no approach feels good all the time. There are periods where your edge isn't present. There are periods where you're sitting on your hands while other traders are posting wins. There are periods where you follow your plan perfectly and still lose money. And if you can't tolerate those periods, if you can't sit with that discomfort, you'll never be consistent. You'll keep switching. You'll keep searching. You'll keep telling yourself that the next method will be the one that finally works. But it won't. Because the problem isn't the method. The problem is that you're using method switching as a way to avoid the psychological discomfort that comes with trading. The traders who make it understand this. They pick an approach and they commit to it. Not because it's perfect, not because it always feels good, but because they know that consistency requires repetition. It requires you to execute the same process over and over again, through winning periods and losing periods, through exciting markets and boring markets, until the edge reveals itself over a large sample size. Most traders never give any single approach enough time to work. They're constantly starting over, constantly at square one, and they wonder why they never make progress. Let me tell you about a conversation I had with a trader a few months ago. He'd been trading for 3 years. He'd tried multiple strategies. He'd read dozens of books. He'd spent thousands of dollars on courses and tools, and he was still losing money. I asked him, what happens when you have a good week? When you follow your plan and you make money? He said it feels amazing. He feels like he's finally figured it out. He feels validated. He feels like all the hard work is paying off. And then I asked him, what happens when you have a bad week? When you follow your plan and you lose money? He got quiet, and then he said something that stuck with me. He said, I feel like I'm back to zero, like all that progress was an illusion, like I don't actually know what I'm doing. This is the third pattern, tying your identity to your results, and it's one of the most destructive things a trader can do. Because when your sense of self-worth is connected to your P&L, you can't trade objectively. Every winning trade becomes evidence that you're smart, capable, on the right track. Every losing trade becomes evidence that you're not, that you're failing, that maybe you don't have what it takes. And this creates a desperate energy around your trading. You start needing trades to work, you start needing to be right, you start needing to prove something to yourself. And that need distorts everything. It makes you hold winners too long because you don't want the validation to end. It makes you cut losers too quickly because you can't tolerate the discomfort of being wrong. It makes you overtrade when you're winning because you feel invincible. It makes you freeze up when you're losing because you feel incompetent. Your trading becomes about you, about proving you're good enough, about protecting your ego, about maintaining a certain self-image. And the market doesn't care about any of that. The market is just moving. It's not personal. It's not a judgment on your worth as a human being. It's just probability playing out over time. But when you're attached to your results, when your identity is wrapped up in your trades, you can't see it that way. You take everything personally. You internalize every loss. You let every win inflate your confidence beyond what's reasonable. And this emotional volatility destroys your ability to execute consistently. Because you're not making decisions based on your edge. You're making decisions based on how you need to feel about yourself in that moment. The traders who succeed have separated their identity from their results. They understand that a good trader can have a bad month, that a profitable system can have a losing streak, that their worth as a person has nothing to do with what happened in the market today. They measure themselves on process, not outcome, on whether they followed their plan, not on whether they made money. And this gives them stability. It gives them the ability to take a loss without spiraling, to take a win without getting overconfident, to stay steady regardless of short-term results. Most traders never develop this separation. They ride an emotional roller coaster, high after wins, devastated after losses. And they wonder why they can't build momentum, why good weeks are always followed by terrible weeks, why they can never seem to stabilize. It's because they're using trading to meet emotional needs that trading can't fulfill. They're looking for validation, for proof of competence, for a sense of identity. And the market is not designed to give them those things. Here's something else I've noticed. Most traders spend an enormous amount of time learning technical analysis. They study chart patterns, they learn indicators, they watch hours of content about setups and entries and exits, and all of that is fine. That's part of the game. But then they trade live and they can't execute what they've learned. They see a perfect setup and they hesitate. They see a mediocre setup and they jump in. They know their stop loss should be in one place and they put it somewhere else. They know they should let their winners run and they close them at the first sign of profit. And when this happens, they think the problem is that they need to learn more. They need to study more patterns. They need to understand the market better. They need more technical knowledge. But that's not the problem. The problem is that they're ignoring psychology. They're treating trading like it's purely technical, like it's just about reading charts and executing rules. And it's not. Trading is mostly psychological. It's about managing yourself under pressure. It's about making decisions when you're uncertain. It's about handling fear and greed and boredom and frustration. This is the fourth pattern. Obsessing over technique while ignoring psychology, and it keeps traders stuck for years. Because you can have the best strategy in the world, but if you can't control your impulses, you won't execute it. You can know exactly where to enter and exit, but if you're afraid of taking losses, you'll sabotage yourself. You can understand risk management perfectly, but if you're chasing excitement, you'll overtrade anyway. The technical part of trading is the easy part. It's learnable, it's concrete, it's mechanical. The hard part is sitting there with your hand hovering over the mouse, feeling the urge to take a trade that doesn't meet your criteria and choosing not to. The hard part is watching the market move without you and being okay with it. The hard part is taking a full loss without immediately wanting to get back in. Most traders never work on this part. They keep focusing on the charts. They keep analyzing their setups. They keep thinking that if they just understand the market better, they'll trade better. But understanding the market doesn't make you disciplined. It doesn't make you patient. It doesn't make you able to tolerate discomfort. Those are psychological skills. And they require psychological work. You have to learn to observe your thoughts without acting on them. You have to learn to feel an emotion without letting it dictate your behavior. You have to learn to sit with uncertainty and discomfort instead of trying to resolve it through action. The traders who make it spend as much time working on their psychology as they do on their technical skills. They journal. They reflect. They track their emotional state alongside their trades. They notice their patterns. They see when they're triggered. They develop self-awareness. Most traders skip all of this. They think it's soft. They think it's optional. They think real traders just need to be tough and disciplined. But toughness and discipline aren't things you just decide to have. They're things you develop through understanding yourself, through seeing your patterns, through learning how your mind works under pressure. And until you do that work, you'll keep making the same mistakes. You'll keep knowing what to do and not doing it. You'll keep feeling frustrated with yourself. You'll keep wondering why you can't just execute your plan. It's because you haven't built the psychological capacity to handle what trading requires, and no amount of technical knowledge will compensate for that. Now let me talk about something that almost every trader struggles with. Time. Specifically, the timeline they're on versus the timeline the market is on. Most traders come into this game with expectations. They think if they work hard, if they study, if they put in the hours, they'll be profitable within a certain time frame. 6 months, a year, maybe 2 years if they're being conservative. And this seems reasonable, because that's how most things work. You go to school, you graduate in 4 years. You start a job, you get promoted based on performance. You practice an instrument, you improve steadily over time. There's a correlation between effort and results, but trading doesn't work that way. You can do everything right for months and still be unprofitable. You can be profitable for 6 months and then lose it all in 2 weeks. You can feel like you figured something out and then realize you haven't. You can put in years of work and still not be where you thought you'd be. This is brutal. Because your brain expects effort to lead somewhere. It expects progress to be linear. It expects that if you're doing the right things, you should see results. And when you don't, when the results don't come on your timeline, you start to panic. You start to doubt. You start to wonder if you're wasting your time. You start to feel like you need to speed things up, like you need to make something happen. This is the fifth pattern, trying to force results on a personal timeline. And it's what causes traders to blow up. Because when you're impatient, you take excessive risk. You trade setups that aren't quite there because you feel like you're running out of time. You hold positions too long because you need them to work. You revenge trade after losses because you're trying to get back to where you think you should be. You stop trading based on your edge and start trading based on your emotional need for progress. And the market doesn't care about your needs. It doesn't care that you've been doing this for a year and you expected to be profitable by now. It doesn't care that you're frustrated or tired or running out of patience. The market just moves according to its own rhythm. And if you're trying to force it to give you results on your schedule, you're going to lose. Every time. The traders who succeed understand this. They let go of their timeline. They stop putting deadlines on their progress. They stop comparing where they are to where they think they should be. They focus on doing the right things today, this week, this month, and they trust that if they keep doing those things, the results will come eventually. But most traders can't do this. They need to see progress. They need to feel like they're moving forward. They need external validation that they're on the right track. And when they don't get it, they make desperate decisions. They increase their risk. They switch strategies. They start forcing trades. And all of this comes from the same place: impatience. The inability to accept that trading takes as long as it takes, that there's no shortcut, that you can't rush the process no matter how badly you want to. I've seen traders who were on the verge of figuring it out give up because it was taking too long. I've seen traders who were developing real consistency blow up their accounts, trying to accelerate their progress. I've seen traders sabotage themselves over and over again because they couldn't tolerate how slow real improvement actually is. And it's tragic, because the only thing standing between them and success is their unwillingness to let the process unfold at its own pace, their need to control the timeline, their inability to trust that consistent right action, repeated over time, will eventually produce results. If you're still here, if what I'm saying is resonating with you, I want you to subscribe to this channel. Not because I need your subscription, but because you need this kind of content. You need reminders that trading is mostly internal work. You need perspective when you're spiraling. You need someone telling you the truth instead of selling you fantasies. This channel exists for traders who understand that the real game is psychological, for traders who are willing to look at themselves honestly, for traders who want to actually improve, not just feel temporarily motivated. So if that's you, subscribe, because we're going to keep going deeper. Now I want you to think about these 5 patterns together: emotional reactivity, strategy hopping, identity attachment, technical obsession, timeline forcing. Do you see how they're connected? Do you see how they feed into each other? You take a loss and you react emotionally. That emotional reaction makes you doubt your strategy. That doubt makes you want to switch. When you switch, you're starting over, which puts you further behind on your timeline. That makes you more impatient. That impatience makes you force trades. Those forced trades lose. Those losses hit your ego, because you've tied your identity to your results. That ego hit makes you emotional again. It's a cycle, and most traders are trapped in it. They move from pattern to pattern, never seeing the whole picture, never understanding that these aren't separate problems. They're all symptoms of the same core issue. The core issue is that you're trying to control things you can't control. You're trying to control the market. You're trying to control the timeline. You're trying to control your emotions through action. You're trying to control your self-worth through results, and none of that works. Because the only thing you can actually control is your process, your decisions, your behavior, your response to what the market gives you. When you let go of trying to control outcomes, when you focus entirely on executing your process regardless of results, everything starts to shift. Not immediately, not dramatically, but gradually. Trade by trade, week by week. You stop being so emotional because you're not attached to individual trades. You stop switching strategies because you're committed to giving your approach time to play out. You stop tying your identity to your results. Because you're measuring yourself on different criteria, you start doing the psychological work because you understand it's the foundation everything else is built on. You stop forcing a timeline because you're focused on the process, not the destination. And slowly, over time, you start to stabilize. You start to see consistency. Not perfection. Not endless winning. But a steady, sustainable approach that you can execute regardless of market conditions or emotional state. This is what real trading looks like. It's not exciting. It's not dramatic. It's just calm execution of a plan you trust, repeated over a large enough sample size that the edge reveals itself. But most traders never get here because they can't tolerate the journey. They can't tolerate the time it takes. They can't tolerate the discomfort of sitting with uncertainty. They can't tolerate the psychological work required to change their patterns. They want the results without the process. They want the outcome without the repetition. They want to be consistently profitable without being consistent in their execution. And the market exposes that every time. Let me tell you what changes when you finally understand these patterns, when you finally see them clearly in yourself. First, you stop blaming external factors. You stop thinking the market is against you. You stop thinking your broker is hunting your stops. You stop thinking other traders have some advantage you don't have. You start seeing that your results are a direct reflection of your decisions. And that's both terrifying and liberating. It's terrifying because it means you're responsible. There's no one to blame. There's no external factor to point to. It's just you, your patterns, your choices. But it's liberating because if you're the problem, you're also the solution. You can change. You can improve. You can develop different patterns. You have agency. You have control over the only thing that actually matters, which is how you show up and what you do. Second, you stop searching for the perfect strategy. You realize that every approach has strengths and weaknesses. Every method has periods where it works and periods where it doesn't. And the key isn't finding the one perfect system. The key is picking something reasonable and executing it consistently enough to let the edge play out. This is such a relief. Because the endless searching is exhausting. The constant learning and switching and trying to optimize. When you let go of that, when you commit to something and just work it, you free up so much mental energy. You can focus on execution instead of analysis. You can focus on psychology instead of technique. Third, you develop a different relationship with results. You stop using them as a measure of your worth. You stop letting them dictate your emotional state. You start seeing them as feedback, as information, as data points in a larger sample. A losing trade doesn't mean you're a bad trader. It means the market moved against you this time. A winning trade doesn't mean you figured everything out. It means you executed your process and it worked this time. Neither one defines you. Neither one determines your future. This emotional stability is what allows you to keep showing up, to keep executing, to keep trading through winning streaks and losing streaks with the same level of clarity and discipline. Fourth, you start to understand that trading is mostly about managing yourself, your attention, your energy, your emotional state, your impulses, your patterns, and you stop expecting this to be easy. You stop thinking you should be able to just white-knuckle your way through it. You start building actual psychological skills. You develop self-awareness. You learn to pause before reacting. You learn to sit with discomfort instead of trying to fix it immediately. You learn to observe your thoughts without believing all of them. You learn to feel emotions without letting them control your behavior. These are the skills that matter. These are the skills that separate consistent traders from everyone else. And they're learnable, they're developable, but only if you're willing to do the work. Fifth, you let go of your timeline. You stop asking, when will I be profitable? You stop comparing yourself to other traders. You stop measuring progress in weeks or months. You start thinking in years. You start focusing on process over outcome. You start asking better questions. Not, am I there yet? But am I doing the work? Am I executing my process? Am I learning from my mistakes? Am I developing the skills that matter? And when you make this shift, when you stop trying to control the timeline and just focus on showing up every day and doing the work, something interesting happens. You relax, you stop forcing, you stop desperate, and ironically, that's when progress starts to accelerate. Because you're finally aligned with what trading actually requires. I want to be clear about something. This isn't a video about how to fix yourself. This isn't about becoming some ideal version of a trader who never feels emotion or makes mistakes. That's not real. That's not human. This is about awareness. about seeing your patterns clearly enough that you can start to work with them instead of being controlled by them, about understanding why you do what you do so that you can make different choices. You're going to keep feeling emotional. You're going to keep having impulses to act when you shouldn't. You're going to keep experiencing doubt and frustration and impatience. That's part of being human. That's part of trading. But when you see these patterns, when you understand where they come from and what they're trying to do, you can create space between the feeling and the action. You can feel the urge to revenge trade and not do it. You can feel the doubt about your strategy and not switch. You can feel the ego hit from a loss and not let it define you. That space, that pause, that's where all the power is. That's where you stop being reactive and start being responsive. That's where you stop being controlled by your patterns and start making conscious choices. And this is a skill. It's not something you're born with or without. It's something you develop through practice, through repetition, through paying attention to yourself over time. Most traders never develop this skill because they're too busy looking at charts. They're too focused on the external game. They don't realize that the real game is internal, that everything that matters is happening between their ears. So where does this leave you? If you're watching this and recognizing yourself in these patterns, what do you do? First, you have to get honest. Brutally honest. You have to stop telling yourself stories about why you're losing. Stop blaming the market. Stop blaming your strategy. Stop making excuses. Just look at your actual behavior. Look at the decisions you're making. Look at the patterns you're repeating. Write them down if you need to. Track your emotional state alongside your trades. Notice when you're breaking your rules and what you were feeling when you did it. Notice when you're switching strategies and what triggered that decision. Notice when you're tying your self-worth to your results and how that affects your trading. Just see it. Don't judge it. Don't try to fix it yet. Just see it clearly. Second, you have to accept that this is going to take time. Real time. Not the timeline you want. Not the timeline you think is reasonable, however long it actually takes. And you have to be okay with that. You have to let go of your need to control when you'll be successful and just focus on what you can do today. Can you follow your plan today? Can you pause before reacting today? Can you sit with discomfort today? Can you execute one good trade today? That's all you need to focus on. Today. This trade. This decision. Stop projecting into the future. Stop worrying about where you should be. Just be here now and do the work. Third, you have to commit to a process. Not a strategy, a process. A way of showing up, a way of making decisions, a way of managing yourself. And you have to commit to doing that process over and over again regardless of short-term results. This is the hardest part. Because your brain wants feedback. It wants to know if it's working. It wants confirmation that you're on the right track. And in trading, you don't get that feedback on your timeline. You get it over a large sample size, over months and months of execution. You have to trust the process before you see the results. You have to keep showing up before you know it's going to work. You have to build the faith through action, not through outcome. Fourth, you have to do the psychological work. You have to develop self-awareness. You have to learn to manage your emotions. You have to build the skills that allow you to execute consistently under pressure. This isn't optional. This isn't extra credit. This is the foundation everything else is built on. And if you skip it, if you think you can just push through with discipline and willpower, you're going to keep struggling. Because discipline and willpower run out. Self-awareness doesn't. And fifth, you have to separate your identity from your trading. You have to build a life outside of this. You have to have other things that matter to you, other sources of meaning and fulfillment, so that when trading is hard, when you're in a drawdown, when nothing is working, you still have a foundation to stand on. Trading cannot be your entire identity. If it is, you'll put too much pressure on it. You'll need it to work in ways that destroy your ability to execute objectively. You'll make it about proving something instead of just executing a process. Have other things, other relationships, other interests, other goals. This doesn't mean trading isn't important. It means you're creating stability in your life so that trading can be what it actually is. A skill you're developing, a process you're executing, a craft you're refining. Most traders fail. That's just the statistical reality. But it's not because trading is impossible. It's not because the markets are rigged. It's not because they're unlucky or stupid or cursed. It's because they're running patterns that don't work. Patterns of emotional reactivity. Patterns of avoidance. Patterns of identity attachment. Patterns of technical obsession. patterns of timeline forcing. And these patterns are predictable. They're understandable. They're human. But they're also changeable. You can develop different patterns. Patterns of calm execution. Patterns of commitment. Patterns of identity separation. Patterns of psychological awareness. Patterns of patience. But it requires you to see yourself clearly, to take responsibility for your decisions, to do the internal work that no one else can see, to commit to a process without knowing when it will pay off, to let go of control and focus on execution. This is the path. It's not glamorous, it's not fast, it's not easy, but it's real, and it works for the people who are willing to walk it. So stop looking for the next strategy. Stop thinking someone else has the answer. Stop waiting for the market to give you what you want. Start looking at yourself. Start seeing your patterns. Start doing the work of becoming someone who can handle this game. Not someone who never makes mistakes. Not someone who never feels emotion. Someone who can see themselves clearly enough to make different choices. That's what separates the traders who make it from the traders who don't. Not intelligence, not talent, not luck. Self-awareness, responsibility, patience, the willingness to do the internal work over time without needing immediate validation. And that's what this channel is here to help you develop, not through shortcuts or secrets, not through hype or motivation, but through truth, through perspective, through the kind of content that helps you see what's actually happening so you can start to change it. This is Trader's Mental Edge, where trading starts in the mind.